So we just celebrated Purim, and now we're about to come up to Passover, Pesach. But if you think about it, they seem to be relatively similar stories and similar things that we're celebrating. Ultimately, the story of Purim was we were threatened by Haman, who wanted to wipe out and annihilate the Jewish people, and yet we were saved. Then you've got the story of Passover, where Pharaoh was suppressing us and subjugating us, and God performs all these miracles, and the Jewish people are redeemed, and we're saved. And in both cases, it seems to be the same story. They tried to kill us, we won, let's eat. But we do have two distinct festivals, Purim and Passover. And the question is, do we really need to? Why don't we celebrate them, both stories, as one festival? If they're seemingly celebrating the same kind of thing, redemption, then why do we need to be having two different festivals? So I think one answer may be this. I've often thought about the Jewish yearly cycle, the festivals that we go through throughout the year. The Jewish year actually begins in Nisan, this month, with Passover. That's when the Jewish year begins. The year for the world, for humanity, begins at Rosh Hashanah, but the Jewish New Year, we start and we count from Nisan, this month. So we begin with Passover and we end the year with Purim. And I always wondered, are we being taken on some kind of a journey as we go through the year from Passover all the way to Purim? So I have some thoughts on the various festivals and what they all mean as we go along this journey, and perhaps we might do that on a separate video. But just the question of, we're starting off with Passover and we're ending with Purim, two redemption stories. What journey are we being taken on? What's the contrast between the beginning of the year Passover and the end of the year Purim? And I think one idea may be this. On Passover, the rabbis tell us the Jewish people didn't really have much merit to their name. In fact, they are described as being on one of the lowest levels of impurity, very much affected by the debased Egyptian culture and society of the time. And yet God performs all these miracles, and he extends his arm out to us, out to the Jewish people, asking us to be his chosen people. And what does chosenness mean? It means a people who are going to be elected to spread godliness and God's vision for the world, God's moral vision for the world, to all of humanity. And when God held the mountain over the head of the Jewish people, so to speak, and said, this is the set of laws that I'm asking you to keep, they're my laws, my Torah, it is said that the Jewish people accepted them in some degree out of fear and trepidation. They were so awestruck by the event. However, on Purim, it was a different story. Esther, before she confronts the king and Haman, she asks all the Jewish people to repent, to reunite, to turn back to God in prayer, because there had been some level of straying from godliness. And in return, God would save the Jewish people. And he did so. And it happened this time without any open miracles. It was all just a set of seeming coincidences. And on this occasion, it says that on Purim, the Jewish people re-accepted the Torah, that covenantal agreement at Mount Sinai, this time out of love, out of a deep free choice. So what's the big difference here? On Passover, God is extending his hand to us. We didn't yet have any merit through our actions yet, and it was done through open miracles. It was an overwhelming experience of love on God's part, of his presence. It was all very clear, but it was very much God doing the work. But on Purim, everything was much more behind the scenes, was much more hidden. And that meant that our choice to turn towards God was a merit. It was our own doing, it was our own choosing. It was a choice out of love, because it came from within us. And so I think that's partly why Passover contains the characteristics of one of the holy festivals like Shabbat, a godly festival. But Purim was actually created by the rabbis, and we don't have the same restrictions that occur on Shabbat on Purim. And it's actually a rabbinical created, a Jewish people created festival, because indeed it was about our doing. our choices, us extending our hand back towards God. And so I think that while in some respects they are both stories of redemption and salvation, actually the nature of them are very different. On Passover, the story of the Exodus, is God extending his hand to us. But as we go throughout the year, we're taken to a place where eventually we, out of our own volition, our own free will, extend our hand back to God. Without any big miracles, we do it through pure free will. So Passover, and in fact all of the major foot festivals, Shavuot, Sukkot, and every time we say, like for example when we make Kiddush or when we recite the Shema and we refer to the Zeichel at Siat Mitzrayim, every time we remember the Exodus from Egypt, it's meant to remind us of God wanting to extend his hand to us in a relationship, craving, desiring a relationship with us. And Passover, and every time we remember the story of the Exodus and all the necessity for all these miracles, was to inspire us, and every time we remind ourselves of this, that God so deeply wants us to have a relationship with him. He's vulnerable, he's sensitive, he's asking, will you be mine? And the celebration of Purim that we're meant to strive to get to throughout the year is to get to a place where we don't need open miracles anymore, where indeed that's the world we live in today, but we don't have these open miracles, where God isn't speaking to us on a mountain, on top of a mountain, and where we instead extend our hand to him because it's coming from a place within us, not from any external factors, not with any awesome events that are forcing us into a straitjacket. No. We're meant to get to a place and use the inspiration, use the desire, the need, the craving that God has for us as inspiration to encourage us to turn back to him and extend our hand back to him. So I think that's the contrast between Passover and Purim, and we've just finished Purim and now we start the yearly cycle again. And I think that's the whole point of the Exodus, that's the whole point of Passover. We're meant to recharge our batteries and remind ourselves that God is the God who took us out of the land of Egypt and wants to be a God to us. And so the question then becomes, do we respond in kind? I'm Ollie Annisfeld from JTV, and I want to wish you all a very happy Passover.
Audio Jungle.